Hey there everybody, welcome to another episode of Bert's Bike. Today we're going to do the O2 sensor delete on my Triumph T100. Now this should be a very simple modification, so let's get right into it. Alright, so first things first, I decided to buy the O2 removal kit from TTP. And I chose to do this because I didn't want to have to source parts or anything. I wanted everything included in one kit. So in this kit you get the plugs, the crush washers, some heat shrink, and some copper grease. They also include some pretty detailed instructions, so those are always nice to have. Next, you need to find where your O2 sensors plug into the bike, and they're right underneath the steering column. Next up, there's some plastic tabs that hold your O2 sensor cables in, and you'll need to remove these with your hands or using some kind of a pry tool. Now's a good time to disconnect the O2 cables. You'll need your flathead screwdriver to lift up on the tab, and then push the two side tabs in and pull to disengage the two connections. Be sure to disconnect both O2 sensors. They're in there pretty deep and kind of tight, so you're gonna be fiddling around a little bit to get this loose. Next up, let's go ahead and crack open these O2 sensors. They are in there pretty tight from the factory, but just a little bit of elbow grease will get them loose. In my case, one of the O2 sensor cables was pretty short, so I couldn't pull it through to disconnect it before undoing the O2 sensors. So your mileage may vary depending on your bike and how much cable slack you have. Now that all the cables and connections are free, you're going to have to get the cables out of the frame. By disconnecting these two radiator bolts, that'll give you enough play to push the radiator back some and allowing the wires to come through. Just apply a little bit of pressure, enough to sneak that cable through. Be sure to repeat this on both sides. Once those cables are free, go ahead and put the bolts back for the radiator. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and make sure that the crush washers came with the O2 sensors. You don't want to be double gasketing your exhaust. Now is a good idea to clean up the area where the new plugs and crush washers will go. I use some contact cleaner, but you can use whatever you have on hand. Let's go ahead and put some anti-seize on these bolts and get them in there. You don't need to go too crazy, just a little bit goes a long way, enough to coat the threads. Be sure to repeat this for both bolts, and don't forget your crush washers. Let's go ahead and get those bolts in by hand. For whatever reason, the way that the engine is designed, there's a lot less clearance on the left side of the bike, so I found this process a little bit fiddly, but keep at it, you'll get it in there. So here's the tricky part, is actually torquing these bolts down. Now, on the left side of the bike, you can actually get an Allen wrench in there, a regular size one, to actually torque this to spec. On the right side, it's a little bit of a different story. Now, I'm sure there's some special tools to get into these shallow places, but I found to give it the correct torque, I had to use kind of a bit here with a short Allen on it, and also my crescent wrench to get in there to get the torque correct. The last thing to do is to either tape up or heat shrink your connectors. Once that's done, go ahead and tuck them back in where you found them. And that's it, the job is done. The only thing left to do is to use your software of choice, either TTP or TuneECU, to go in and clear the codes and disable your O2 sensors.
Alright guys, so that was a pretty
pretty straightforward install. The only thing that caught me a little bit off was the plugs are facing into the bike, and so trying to get a wrench in there, or a torque wrench at that, to try to get it to the manufacturer spec isn't really going to happen. So just give it the old arm tight with whatever method you can get back there, and it should be good to go. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, leave a comment below. It's Bert's Bike, and I'll catch you on the next one.